This is Dr. Obulakonda Reddy, Department of CSC Cybersecurity. Today we will discuss the concept of security policies and high performance computing. Nowadays, security is the most important thing. So at the end user point of view, the security is the very important. In case it is failure of security, it may be loss of your data, or maybe financial, loss of financial things, maybe lot of things may be happening. So the security is the main constraint in high performance computing. So while performing in high performance computing, we have to, security is the one of the major thing. We have to take a constraint. We have to consider the security. Now, mostly in high performance systems, all interconnected clusters. One cluster has to be connected with the other clusters. But each clusters, even failure of one systems, that may be the loss is very huge. That's why the security concerns is the most important thing. We have to focus. Today we'll discuss that security issues on high performance computing. Now the end user point of view, that is to play an active role, keeping a secure environment. That is the real need for security. So it's very important for security, and behind the security method taken, and the way to use them properly. So what way you have to use them properly. And mostly we have to focus on usability and the security. What way you have to use the resources and how to provide the security in those. So now see here, nows and cows. So here now, finding the weakest point in nows, network of workstations and clusters of workstations, nows and cows. So now, what is the weak point? Nowadays, individual system, for example, if you take individual missions, working with individual missions, it is isolated work is not a, nowadays it is not a possible to done with a isolated work. We have to combine, that is important. So isolating services from each other is almost impossible. Isolation work is not done nowadays, because of, if it is done something, we have to do properly something on that, then that will be shared with the others. You have to connect it with internet, or the system, it has to be interconnected with a LAN or WAN or MAN. So something it has to be interconnected. Almost it is not done with the isolation works. So now here, see that. And the second thing is, we realize how potentially dangerous some services are. And it is sometimes difficult to track how these are related with other seemingly innocent ones. This is the second thing. And other thing is allowing access from the outside there. Allowing the access from the outside is, but anyone knows in cluster systems. For example, we have working with a cluster system. A number of systems connected like this. A number of systems. In cluster systems, anyone allowing accessing from the outside without authorization, they can access the data from the clusters or nodes. That is a very dangerous. So allowing access from the outside is a very bad. And next thing is, single intrusion implies security compromises for all of them. Even a service is not safe unless all of services. So we have to provide the security to each and every systems. Even in one system, it may be lost due to that loss. Maybe one system failure of year now. So that may be the loss may be a very huge. So that is the thing. So every system properly we have provided with the security. These are all the now constraints. These are all the different constraints we have to see, nows and cows, networks of workstations and clusters of workstations. Now this is the weak point due to the intersection of services. Now this is the internal network file systems. NFS is the network file system domain. Here is the another network file system domain. In between network server, this is a network server. Weak point is front-end systems. Front-end. This has to provide it with multiple users logins and multiple jobs also executed with a front-end system. Through use of a front-end system, we can execute it with a multiple jobs and multiple logins is also possible. Then here now observe that this part. So this part network server in a network file system that have an NFS server. The NFS server has to be interacted with a group of this is a interconnected switches. The switches we have to connect it with a different nodes here, a number of nodes. That will be through this server has to be interacted with another internal network file system services. This is the another internal network file systems. Now one server has to be internally connected with the other system, but in between it is the weak point. We have see here the intersection point is a front end. Front end allow the access to multiple logins, and at a time it has to be executed with a more number of jobs. So now this is a constraint. Now we have to focus on front end. So this is a weak point. From internally we have to sending data from one NFS system to NFS server to other NFS another internal NFS systems. Then front end system we have to connect it. That is the weak point. So this diagram outline that in between we have to access in between cluster to cluster. One cluster of systems has to be interacted with the internal another cluster systems. It has to be through a use with a front end systems. The front ends are mostly that has to be helped with a connection to different cluster systems, one cluster system to other cluster systems. So this is the thing happening in this diagram. Now, what is the little help from a front end system? What we have done. Now, human factor. So human factor may be destroying a consistency. That has to be destroying a consistency. Once involved of human factory, human has to be involved that may be destroying a consistency. And information leaks. Most of the things we have to use TCP/IP protocol. So information leaks may happen at TCP/IP. We have to focus on that. And then clusters are often used for external workstation in other networks. Then justify the front end from security viewpoint in most cases. So justify front end security viewpoint in most cases. So serve as a simple fiber. So with use the fiber, just we can view front end from a security viewpoint. So that point of view we use for firewalls. Somewhat a little like a front end systems. Most of the whatever the weak point to overcome that one, we have to do these activities. Then they may be not to access with a unauthorized persons. Then see here. Security versus performance threat. Now most security measures have no impact on performance, but it is not an impact on a performance, and proper planning can avoid the impact. So this is the thing, most security measures have no impact on performance, but a proper planning, we have to make a proper planning, can avoid that impact, whatever the impact on reflected on the performance. The proper planning, we have to avoid those impacts, and then we can improve performance. But most of the thing, not the security is not impact on a performance. Most of the then what is the trade-off? Mainly we have to see that what is the usability and more security. Usability in the sense we can access most of utilization of the resources. Whatever the nodes have a resources, effectively utilize usability. Security. So versus more security, we have to providing unauthorized access, not allowing. And better performance versus more security. This is the thing will happen. And then the strong ciphers. This case with a strong ciphers, we have to consider with a ciphers. What is a cipher in the sense? The plain text has to be converted to a ciphertext. Means it has to be converted with the other form. Like that, for example, I want to send IARE. IARE is a one message. Then I is substituted one letter. Maybe for example 5, and the A may be 1, or maybe a 6, and the E may be a 10 something. So 1, 6, 10. This is called, actually this is a plain text. Initially that is name is called plain text, but now it is converted as a ciphertext. Now it is converted with a other encryption. For the encryption purposes, plain text has to be converted with a ciphertext. So now that is in the ciphertext, a strong ciphers, then that may be an unencrypted string that may be greater than 7.5 Mbps, megabytes per second. And then second thing is blowfish encrypted string, then 2.75 MBs. And then idea encrypted string that may be taken as greater than 1.8 MBs. So this process now we have to convert it from plain text to ciphertext. It is called as a encryption. For that we have to create it for a strong ciphers. Then unencrypted string is required for a 7.5 greater than 7.5 MBs, and the blowfish encrypted system that may be taken at 2.75, and then idea encrypted system that may be taken to 1.8 MBs. And the second thing is clusters of clusters. Through a proper tunnels, we have to connect it once a cluster of system has to be interacted with the other clusters. So sharing of data from one cluster. Cluster means a group of nodes as interconnected. And then we have to connect it with another clusters. So that is a cluster of clusters, cluster of workstations, and cluster of clusters. See here, building up cluster of cluster is nowadays it is a common practice for large scale testing. This is a common thing in nowadays. But special care must be taken on the security implications. But we have to transferring from one cluster to other cluster, internal clusters or maybe outside clusters. It has to be taken special care. Special must be taken on the security implications when this is done. Special care must be taken on security implications. And then next thing is building secure tunnels between the clusters. Usually from the front end to front end. You have to see front end system to front end. Building a secure tunnels between the clusters is the important thing. Secure tunnels between a front end to front end. Through a front end, we have to connect with a one NFS system to previous diagram will explain that one. NFS server has to be interconnected with a front end system. The front end system to a NFS internal NFS systems. Now, so this is the through a front end we can interconnect. Now, high security requirements. This is the need to high security requirement. A dedicated tunnel front end. We have to specially design for a dedicated tunnel front end, or keeping the usual front end free for just the tunnel. So this is the one constraint, and nearby the cluster in the same backbone. So letting the switches do that work. So nearing by cluster in the nearing the cluster in the same backbone. So letting this thing that will be switches will be help for that. And VLAN, this is a very important. Multiple connections has to be connected with the physical system, physical layer. Physically it has to be interconnected with the multiple nodes. Now VLAN, virtual local area networks. So this is trusted with a backbone switches. VLAN is acting as another backbone switches. So these are all the parameters that will be supported with a cluster of clusters for providing the more security. Either tunnel or maybe tunnels. Second thing is a tunnel or high security requirements. Use front end to front end or nearby clusters, switches or VLAN. These are all the parameters that will be more secure with a cluster of cluster system. And inter-cluster communication using a secure tunnel. So this is considered as a tunnel. This is a point we have taken as a tunnel. Unsafe median. So front end to front end, we have to connect it with this is the tunnel system from front end to front end. Before this one, this is a one cluster. This is a cluster A. This cluster is a cluster B, and this is another cluster. This one is a cluster A. Both clusters are the same. So in between these clusters, we have to through the tunnels. We have to connect it with a tunnels. Connected through a tunnels. The tunnels may be used for this thing front end to front end. We have to connect it with a front end to front end. So now inter-cluster communication using a secure tunnel. So this diagram explain that. So in between, like we have to taken as the two clusters. This is the C1 cluster 1 and this is a cluster 2. We have to in between these two clusters communicated, In between we have to use for front end to front end. We use like one of the unencrypted tunnels. This is the tunnels we have taken here. Through these tunnels, we have to communicate it with the cluster 1 to cluster 2 has to be communicated. So this is a inter-cluster communication processes. And next thing is a virtual LAN. So virtual LAN, that has to be multiple physical systems are interconnected. Now here, see this one. This is one of these systems, and this is considered as another thing, and this is as another cluster system. We have to take as a 3 cluster CPUs that has to be interconnected with the switches. CPUs, every CPUs has to be interconnected with the switches. Here is also connected. For example, if you take as a cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3 clusters, you have to use trusted backbone switches. That is called VLAN, virtual LAN. Through a virtual LAN, we have to interconnect it with the different cluster systems. So now virtually trusted backbone switches, that is VLAN. Virtually the front-end system before connected with the front-end systems. For example, C3 has to be interconnected with the front-end system. C1 is also connected with this one is front-end systems. And then before this, it has to be connected with the trusted backbone switches. That is a process VLAN, virtual LAN. Multiple cluster systems has to be interconnected with multiple things has to be interconnected. In a physical channel, we have to connect it with a different clusters or different things has to be interconnected. So for that purpose, this is VLAN is a very trusted backbone switches. So this is a virtual LAN using a trusted backbone switches. The CPU has to be a number of processes that has to be the cluster system as a CPU and then switches. Again, it has to be interacted with a trusted switch backbone, and then after this one is also directly interacted with cluster 3. For example, this is also interacted with a trusted backbone switches, and the cluster 1 is also interacted with a trusted backbone switches. And then this one is front end system is the common thing. So front end is the common thing. And then this front end is also indirectly interacted with the virtual. So for this, it has to be highly secure with the cluster systems. This way, performance is given high. The security is also provided. So now I take the references from this high performance cluster computing architectural systems, volume 1 by 4. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.